After the best Saturday we have seen in college football in some time, we are now looking ahead to Week 7. Welcome to a new hour of CBS Sports HQ. I'm Amanda Guerra. Well, this weekend we get another SEC doubleheader on CBS, starting off with Auburn at Arkansas, and then Kentucky taking on the new #1 team in the country, the Georgia Bulldogs.
We've got another doubleheader for the SEC on CBS this Saturday beginning at noon, with the Auburn Tigers heading to Arkansas to take on the Razorbacks. And it's a game with added importance in the SEC West after Alabama's loss at Texas A&M. And Auburn still controls its own fate in the division. In the 3:30 time slot, it's the big one in the SEC East. The top-ranked Georgia Bulldogs hosting the unbeaten Kentucky Wildcats. Georgia continues to dominate their competition with a smothering defense, and the offense helped them break things open in the second half at Auburn.
Deep ball down the middle, and it is caught over the shoulder. McConkey, touchdown right down the middle, right down the seam, 60-yard strike.
As for Kentucky, they're 6-0 for the first time since 1950 and appear to be Georgia's only potential challenger in the division. If Big Blue can steal this one, they'll be the heavy favorites to win the East. But that's a big if. Mark Stoops has the 11th-ranked Wildcats playing inspired football ahead of their biggest test of the season.
15, 10, 5, touchdown, Kentucky! C-Rod! Wow. With a nail in the coffin of the LSU Bayou Bengals.
Might we see another massive upset of the #1 ranked team? Or will that dog D be too much for Kentucky to handle? First place in the SEC East and a potential clear path to the conference championship on the line Saturday in Athens.
On the SEC East, it may be just Kentucky and Georgia, but they are far ahead of everybody else. In Georgia, the heavy favorite at home in this one, even though Kentucky off to their best start since 1950. Right before that, you get Auburn at Arkansas. Both schools coming off losses. Of course, Arkansas barely losing to Ole Miss, and they are getting 3.5 at home in this one. Let's welcome in two of our experts, Brady, Quinn, Bryant, McFadden. I'm Amanda Guerra with you here for the next 30 minutes or so. So Kentucky 6-0, off to its best start since Bear Bryant was there in 1950, but it is Georgia, the heavy favorite at home. 23.5 the total here, 44 and a hook. Brady, go first with your play in this one.
Look, let's just say this about Kentucky. I don't know that anyone thought they would be at this point in the season still undefeated, still doing what they're doing. And to me, it's impressive what Mark Stoops has done. I don't think he receives enough credit for how he's built up this program so far. And I think they do have a recipe for the upset, but man, this line is huge. And that clearly leads you to believe that our friends out west see a big-time mismatch with really the strength of Kentucky, which is their rushing attack. Chris Rodriguez might be the best running back in the SEC. Will Levis will also be a part of that rush attack at the quarterback spot. And Wan'Dale Robinson is a big-time playmaker on the outside. So those three combined, I think, can provide some fits for the Georgia Bulldogs defense, but I just don't think you're going to see it quite as much. I think, unfortunately, Kentucky's going to be outmatched, even though I have questions about the passing attack of the Georgia Bulldogs. If Stetson Bennett is a quarterback, Zamir White's getting his mojo back running the football along with the rest of the Bulldogs' backfield. And that defense, you said the 33 points, I'm more concerned to see if they can rush at all in this game. So bottom line is Georgia wins. I'm going to take Kentucky in the points in this one, and probably the best bet of the day is the under.
Yeah, that's the direction I'm going. I'm taking the total, attacking the under, and here's why. Kentucky's defense probably is the second best defense in the SEC. Now, there's a big-time gap of separation between Georgia's defense and Kentucky's defense, but so far this year, they have really exceeded the expectations, only allowing around 17 points per ball game. And Brady, you right on with their offense. The strong suit of their offense has been the ground and pound attack, but UGA's defense is the wrong defense you would like to establish that type of identity against. So me personally, I think they will provide some elements of concerns for UGA's offense, but ultimately with all the 5 stars and the eventual pros UGA has, they will score points, but I don't expect for it to be an explosion of points based on what we've seen in weeks past coming from UGA's offense. In the last 2 games between these two teams, I mean, Georgia has outscored Kentucky 35-3. 35-3 in 2 ball games. So clearly Kentucky's defense have been able to have success against Georgia, but granted, their offense has been a bit missing. I think they will be a better offensive team but I do not expect Kentucky to get into the red area. And I do believe Georgia will score points, but I don't think they will score enough to be able to surpass this under. So me personally, I'm tacking the under.
Okay, agree on the under there. That game at 3:30 on CBS. Before that, at noon, we get Auburn at number 17, Arkansas. Arkansas with that heartbreaker loss to Ole Miss, 52-51, but the Razorbacks getting 3.5 at home here. The total is 53. B-Mac, go first on this one. What's your play?
I'm attacking the total once again. It's an under the cover matchup, and here's why. The last 2 weeks from Arkansas's defense, we've seen a lot of letdowns, especially in the red zone. They allowed 37 to UGA. They allowed 50 plus to Mississippi. But one thing I can tell you about Arkansas's defense, they play better football at home. When you look at the spread betting wise, they're 7-3 in their last 10 home games. The under is 7-3 in the last 10 home games. So they play much better football at home, historically speaking. You talk about what they've been able to do this year and then going back to last year, not to mention the uncertainties with Auburn's offense. Who the quarterback will be, we don't know. But one thing we do know, whoever the quarterback is, their completion percentage has been so inconsistent. So I think points will come at a premium, and I'm attacking the under.
I think the under is the solid play here. I'm with you on that, B-Mac. The only thing is I'm going to go ahead and take the 3.5 points here and lay with Auburn. I think this defense for Arkansas has been exposed if you're looking over the past couple of games as they've gotten in more to the meat of the schedule. They're giving up a little bit over 44 points, almost 500 total yards on defense. So that really sets up well for an Auburn rushing attack led by Hudner and Bigsby, the combination of those two. And Nix potentially, too, if he's in there as a part of that at quarterback for them. So I think Auburn is going to be able to do enough running the football. You can see Bo Nix scrambling around trying to make some plays. This has unfortunately kind of been his life the past couple of weeks. Only thrown one touchdown pass the past 4 games. But I think this Arkansas defense has been exposed. The one-dimensional ability of Arkansas, for the most part, running the football with KJ Jefferson and their backfield. Outside of being able to find Treylon Burks, which I think Auburn can do enough in shutting him down to really make this one-dimensional game a little bit overmatched. So I actually like the money line here, too, for Auburn. I don't think they just cover. I think they win outright in a low-scoring game.
We get number 12, Oklahoma State, at number 25, Texas. If Danny were here, somehow this would be a hangover. I'm not sure if it would be a bad hangover and Texas is just going to stumble through this one or whatever, but the Longhorns are favored by 5.5 at home. The total here, 60 and a hook. What do you think about this?
Well, the first thing I just say is I feel like Oklahoma State's like one of those teams that's like drastically disrespected. You know, they're undefeated still so far, even though they haven't played the toughest schedule. People are maybe sleeping on this team, so I'm going to go ahead and take the 5.5 points. Now, I don't think they win this game outright. I think the offensive attack is just too much there with Texas. Now, even though they're going to be without wide receiver Jordan Whittingham, who's explosive, we saw the emergence of Xavier Worthy last week. And, oh, by the way, there's this Heisman candidate named Bijan Robinson at running back for Texas who's going to be too much for the Cowboys defense. So I'm going to go ahead and take the 5.5 points, but I think still Texas wins this one in a close one. And I've got another low-scoring game. Both defenses stepping up, even though Texas last week was awful, B-Mac. I think they respond in this one versus an Oklahoma State team that maybe struggles from time to time to consistently be able to score.
Well, I can tell you this much. Based on what I saw from Texas defense, Kennedy Brooks is probably still in the end zone right now. And because of that, I'm siding with Oklahoma State getting 5.5 because when you look at their offense, Jaylen Warren, especially the last 3 weeks, he's been averaging around 123 yards on the ground. Clearly, the Longhorns cannot stop any opposing offense ground and pound attack, and I know that would be a big-time emphasis for their defense, but Warren is a guy that can really do damage. I think he will, not to mention Spencer Sanders. He will have a say-so in the running game as well. And historically speaking, I mean, the Cowboys, out of the last 11 games against the Longhorns, they've won 3 out of the last 6 matchups in Austin. They've 5-1. So one thing about these two teams, the Cowboys have had the Longhorns number in past ball games. I think that trend will continue, especially when you talk about receiving 5.5 points.
Let's stick in the Big 12 here. We get TCU at Oklahoma. The Sooners getting 11.5 at home. The total here, 65 and a hook. B-Mac, Lincoln Riley still not naming his starting quarterback, if it'll be Spencer Rattler or Caleb Williams. But either way, what do you think about the Sooners in this one?
Well, Lincoln, let me do your job for you. I don't have to get any of your paycheck, but if you want to give me a little bit, I'll take it. I'm naming your starting quarterback. It's Caleb Williams. Hands down, he is the best quarterback on the roster. And if he is the starting quarterback, and I do believe he will be the starting quarterback, give me the Sooners. Lane 11.5. One thing I can tell you about Mr. Williams, when he's involved in a ball game, you have to guard 11 guys because he can be a productive runner with the football, not to mention the accuracy. And one thing that I saw when he entered the ball game, the morale of the team increased. It seemed like these guys love him as a teammate. They love him as a player. They love him as a person. I'm not saying the same for Spencer Rattler, but it seems like these teammates love him a little more than Spencer Rattler. And when you have that type of love and respect, you will do everything in your power to be able to do what your job calls you to do. So if he is a starter, and I do believe he should be the starter, he will be, give me the Sooners, Lane 11.5.
Let's go ahead and call it what it is. Look, he provided a spark for Oklahoma last week, in particular on that 4th-and-1 run, long run. Then when he came in, some of the subsequent kind of scrambling around, making some big plays. The touchdown pass on 3rd and 19 was absolutely phenomenal. So he should be the starter. I'm expecting him to be the starter. All that being said, this is a big number, and this is in particular a number where I think TCU has played Oklahoma tough in recent years. They do have one of the better rushing attacks, so I think that Oklahoma defense, rush defense, which is one of the better in the Big 12, will be challenged in this one. And even though you'd think because both teams can run the football well, as B-Mac alluded to, maybe Kenny Brooks is still running at this point in time, I think this is going to hit the over. I actually like the overplay better than the 11.5, but I'll go ahead and lay the 11.5 points only because I do think Oklahoma might have found something in Caleb Williams and the spark that he's provided this team.
All right, we'll see what happens with the quarterback situation there if it is indeed Caleb Williams. Let's recap their picks, what we have so far. We're going to go through quite a few games here. So when it comes to Kentucky at Georgia, they both like the under there. Also, both going with the under with Auburn at Arkansas. They both like Oklahoma State to cover, although Brady says he does think Texas will win. And when it comes to TCU at Oklahoma, both going with OU to cover the 11.5. Coming up, it was a tough weekend for Alabama. So what can we expect from them this weekend when they visit Mississippi State? Can they cover the 17? We'll ask our guys that next. Welcome back into CBS Sports HQ, getting ready for Week 7 in college football. Taking a look at some other notable SEC-ranked games we've got coming up. Florida going up against LSU. LSU now missing a weapon on their offense. Kayshon Boutte out for the season. We get Texas A&M after their huge win over Alabama at Mizzou. And then Alabama trying to recover from that loss to Texas A&M, but they are a heavy favorite on the road at Mississippi State. Let's welcome back in Brady Quinn, Bryant McFadden. So let's look at former number 1, now current number 5, Alabama at Mississippi State. Alabama favored by 17 on the road here, the total 57.5. How does Alabama respond in this one?
Oh, they're going to respond in a big way. They're going to take out all the frustrations that you saw versus Texas A&M, which, you know, look, rightfully so. As much as you want to credit Jimbo Fisher, his staff, the job they did, in particular Mike Elko, scheming up really the offensive line of protections for Alabama, which is where they won that game, the negative plays and the sacks that they were getting on Bryce Young. It was all about the scheme coming into it. Those are going to be fixed. And so if Mississippi State tries to, you know, expect that they're going to have issues with that, I don't think that's going to be the problem moving forward. So I expect a huge performance out of this Alabama team that just seemed to be a little bit off rhythm, lack of communication. Credit the 12th man there in College Station. Bottom line is Alabama knows exactly what they need to do in order to get back into the national championship conversation, and that is win and win convincingly the rest of the way, winning the SEC West and looking for that matchup with Georgia. So I think Bama's going to hammer Mississippi State. I feel bad for Will Rogers, but that's the reality of this one, and I'll take the over as well.
Yeah, roll tide roll. I mean, 17 points. You got to lay it with Alabama. Over the last decade plus, Nick Saban is 9-1 in his last 10 games after a loss. That one lonely blemish on his record was a bowl game, but in regular season outings, after a loss, they're taking the field with a fury of big-time plays and big-time hits, similar to what Tyson did this past Saturday. So me personally, seeing this 17 points, I'm taking the Crimson Tide. You better believe some of the mistakes they had against A&M, the missed tackles, the drop passes, the misreads from the quarterbacks. We won't see that this Saturday. You talked about, Brady, how important every game is for Alabama to try to get to the playoff picture. They understand that, and you just can't win. You need to add style points. They understand that, and you better believe they will start that quest this Saturday against Mississippi. I'm laying 17.
All right, taking revenge against Mississippi State for what happened against A&M there. Let's go to number 20, Florida at LSU. I thought it was 38. Florida was actually favored by 39 against Vanderbilt. They covered that. It is Vanderbilt. It was 42-0. They're favored by 10 in this one. The total is 58 and a hook. B-Mac, what's your play in this game?
I'm taking the Gators. I'm taking the Gators. And the thing about Florida right now, Emory Jones, granted, I know he's been criticized a lot, but he's starting to play pretty good football, especially with the more reps he's getting in game action. Not to mention the running game they have along with Emory Jones has really been impressive. The thing about LSU, I think they have bigger issues that are not football related, but we're starting to see that transition on the football field. And because of that, they're in the midst of a 2-game losing streak. So you look at this matchup, this is a very, very important matchup for Florida. You look at these two teams, one team is thriving, one team is just surviving. That team is LSU, so give me the Gators. ATS speaking, the Gators are 7-3 ATS in their last 10 meetings in Baton Rouge, so they love playing there. For some reason, they've had a lot of success when it comes to covering the spread. So me personally, give me the Gators laying the points.
You know, Bryant, you touched on something that's really the concern right now of this LSU program, where they're at under Ed Orgeron. I think there's a lot of pressure on him right now to be able to win some of these matchups. I mean, they got absolutely blown out last week versus Kentucky. But I do think Max Johnson will be able to score some points and have his moments in this game, even without Butte, a wide receiver, given that he's out for the rest of the season. But you touched on it. Emory Jones and really the progress he's made in particular as a passer. We know he can run the football. We know Anthony Richardson can do that as well, now that he's back from the hamstring injury. It's been about the progress throwing the football down the field, and that's where I feel like you're going to see success, especially considering some of the players who are not there for LSU in that secondary on defense. So I'm going to lay the 10 points. Don't feel great about that, but I love the over in this one.
Number 13, Ole Miss at Tennessee. Tennessee somewhat sneakily maybe 4-2 so far this season. Ole Miss getting 3 on the road. They're actually at his 3.5. It goes back and forth a little bit there, but the total here is huge, 79 and a hook. Brady, what's your play?
Yeah, that total's just too high, even though obviously both these points can put up, both these teams can put up points. When you look at Ole Miss this year so far, and even under Hendon Hooker too for Tennessee, he's really provided a different element to this offense with the way they've been able to operate through the air. So I think there will be a lot of scoring, but just under that number. So the under to me is the better play here. But I'll go ahead and lay the 3 points, even though Ole Miss is on the road. I think Matt Corral doesn't get enough credit for how good he is. And obviously Snoop Connor at the running back spot will provide some balance out of that backfield. So again, don't feel great about laying the points here. Feel better about the under between these two teams, B-Mac.
Yeah, give me Tennessee. I mean, Hendon Hooker, since becoming the starting quarterback there in Knoxville, completing 69% of his passes, 13 touchdowns, 1 interception. One thing that I love about him, his deep ball is now on point. Early in the year, they were missing wide open wide receivers down the football field. Now the connection is there, so I love his ability to be able to take advantage of some mishaps coming from Mississippi's secondary, and they will have some mishaps. And then with the Rebels, they're an entertaining ball team. But one thing I can say about them, when they're in conference play, they don't cover the spread. They're 0-4 ATS in their last 4 conference games, home or away. They do a horrible job in covering. So I got to follow that trend with this matchup, and I'm taking the Volunteers.
On opposite sides there, let's go to A&M at Mizzou. A&M went from unranked to now number 21 after beating Alabama. They get 8.5 on the road there. The total 60 and a hook. B-Mac, what do you think about this game?
I don't love the spread. I love the total. I'm taking the under. Yo, listen, Zach Calzada played probably his best game of his career so far last week, and he needed to do so. I do believe he will continue to go in that direction, but I don't expect to see some of the plays we saw last Saturday night against Alabama. They're going to run the football. They're going to get back to doing what they do best offensively, which is running the football. Defensively, they're getting right. They're getting back in their vibe, their groove of things. I love what they were able to do against Alabama. They gave up some yards on the ground, but yet and still they made plays. So me personally, seeing Missouri be up and down, inconsistent so much offensively, I got to attack the under in this ball game, and that's the direction I'm going.
I'm with you, B-Mac. I think the under is the way to play in this one. Both teams like to run the football. Tyler Beatty from Missouri, he'll be their lead back. And if you look at Spiller, too, really he's been phenomenal so far this year for Texas A&M. So the rushing attack should shorten the game, but I also think it's going to be where this game is won and lost for Texas A&M. It's the line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively. They should be able to dominate up front. I'm not sold necessarily on Zach Calzada being able to replicate the performance of what we saw a week ago. But I don't think it's going to get worse considering what we saw when he first got in there. So I'm going to go ahead and lay the 8.5 points, but I think the better bet here is the under.
All right, Brady and BMAC, let's recap their picks. Take a little look. They both agree that Alabama is going to respond big time against Mississippi State after losing to Texas A&M. They both like Florida to cover the 10. The total there a little too rich for Brady's blood. Try to say that a couple times fast. Is going with the under, and then they both like the under with A&M at Mizzou. Coming up here on CBS Sports HQ, I am going to step off set, and it is only fitting that Chris Hassel is going to come on and talk to you about Purdue at Iowa. We'll get plays for that game next.
We're going to combine a couple of conferences here, the ACC and the Big Ten, because there are a bunch of Big Ten teams who are off this week. And Wake Forest is off in the ACC, the other ranked team besides NC State. So we got Michigan State at Indiana and Purdue at Iowa. The Hawkeyes coming off that huge win against Penn State. NC State at Boston College. NC State one loss this season along with the Eagles. So let's pick them. We've got Brady, Quinn, and Bryant McFadden. I got to be honest, as an Iowa fan, I don't love this matchup. Iowa's lost 3 of the last 4. Could be a little bit sleepy after all the celebrating last week, and Riley Moss is not going to play in this game for Iowa.
This would be what Danny Cannell typically calls the hangover, although he uses it for wins or losses depending on how he sees fit. This would be that moment for a hangover, though, right? You just had a huge victory at home. Everyone storms the field. You're feeling good about yourself. Now you're the second-ranked team in the country. I don't think Kirk Ferentz, though, is going to let this go to their head. I think he's going to remind them of Purdue being a bad matchup for them, the fact they've got an outstanding playmaker on the outside in David Bell, and as you pointed out, Riley Moss, arguably their best cornerback, is going to be down for this one. So they potentially could have some mismatch issues if you're able to see Purdue get the ball to perimeter, in particular to Bell, and create some big plays. And it's not like this offense doesn't have a lot to work on. I think anyone who watched that game last week saw how bad Spencer Petras struggled, with the exception of one big throw and play to Nico Reganey. So, look, Iowa is far from the finished product. Now, I don't think they're going to be feeling that great about themselves. The line at 11.5 is kind of big for this rivalry, especially the way it's been in recent years. I'm going to lay the 11.5 points, but I think the best play here is the under. With that defense, the way Iowa can play, I don't think anyone's scored a bunch of points against them.
Yeah, you saw that note on the graphic there. Purdue is the only team in the country where every game they've played so far, BMAC, the under has come through.
No question. You got to follow the trend when it comes to putting your money on these teams. Me personally, that's the hottest trend out of all college football. The under associated with Iowa. Brady talked about some of the concerns with Petras at the quarterback position. He's not an explosive quarterback. He's a quarterback that's going to nickel and dime you, but most importantly, they got to try to run the football. That has been their identity, and it's not going anywhere. And yes, they will be without one of the best corners in college football in Moss, but they got some guys that can fly around and present some difficult challenges for Purdue. So that line is a bit large. But one thing that I love anytime Iowa is stepping on the football field has been the under, so I got to follow the trend. The trend is all our friends. Let's take the under.
All right, both of them on the under for that game. Brady also, if he's going to go one way, it's to Iowa and the minus 11.5 because of the Kirk Ferentz factor. Let's move on to Michigan State and Indiana. If you looked at this line before the season started, Indiana was going to be favored by over a touchdown in this game. It's completely flipped because Michigan State is unbeaten and Indiana's really struggling.
What a job Mel Tucker has done completely turning around this program in such a short amount of time. I mean, they were a 2-win team last year. Granted, during COVID, a lot of difficulties that come with that, but they have got some legitimate playmakers. I mean, Kenneth Walker III is a Heisman candidate. If you're in New York City right now, you've probably seen that, like downtown, a lot of the advertising that's going on. But whether you want to talk about Naylor or Reed on the outside, they've got the ability to take some of the pressure off of Walker in the run game because of that. And Peyton Thorne's been good with the football. He will be tested in this game, though. Something tells me this game's going to be a lot more challenging than I think we originally thought. Look, Indiana's got a high-pressure defense. Tom Allen's not going to let Michigan State run the ball all over them. So I love a low-scoring game, a sleepy environment there in Bloomington. And I think that pressure could get to Peyton Thorne from time to time. So I'm going to take the 4.5 points with Indiana, but I think the best play here is the under between both these two defenses.
Mel Tucker has really won me over so far this season. I've done a real good job in leaning with Michigan State. I will continue to lean with them in this particular matchup. I love Kenneth Walker. You talked about what he's been able to do nationally. I mean, he's still not getting the credit that he deserves, but he will continue to open eyes. Over 900 yards, 9 rushing touchdowns. And yes, Peyton Thorne, only 2 interceptions compared to 14 touchdowns. They're so well balanced. each week they get better, they gain more confidence, and I love their defense against a very, very feeble offense coming from the Hoosiers. We haven't really seen what we thought we would see from Indiana's offense, especially the aerial attack. They've been so inconsistent. In the head-to-head matchups, the last 17 ball games, the Spartans are 12-5 ATS in their last 17 matchups against Indiana. That trend will continue as well, and like I said, when you got Mr. Walker on your team, you will get into the red area and you will score points. I do believe they will do so. So give me the Spartans laying the points.
Michigan State, one of 5 top 10 teams in the Big Ten right now, but most of those teams going to end up playing each other, like Michigan State, Ohio State.
A lot of beating each other up. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, though.
Like Michigan State does BMAC. Brady thinks it's going to be a little bit closer. Indiana is the pick there. Moving on to the ACC, only one ranked game. Wake Forest is off. Their next game isn't until next week against Army, so it's out of conference. So NC State, the only ranked ACC team in action, and it is not a big spread. -3 at Boston College, both teams 4-1.
No, in part I think because of BC's defense, and they feel like they can keep this game close. Though, with Phil Jurkovec out, at least for the regular season, Dennis Corrales hasn't really provided the type of firepower that makes you think BC can win this game. So I think you lay the points with NC State right now. They're a different team when Devin Leary's behind center for them. So that's the play to me. But I do think there'll be some scoring on the part of NC State in this point. And taking advantage of getting Leary out on the edge. We can make some plays in the passing game. So I'll take the over, but I think the best bet here is NC State laying the 3 points.
I'm taking the under actually because of the concerns with BC's offense. Grosel has been a bit inconsistent running the football. They've been inconsistent as well. And this NC State Wolfpack defense, they have some athletes on their defense, especially at the second and third level, that can really fly around and make things difficult for the opposing offense they're going against. But when you look at BC's defense, they can play football. I mean, we saw what they did a few weeks ago against Clemson. Clearly should have won that ball game if it wasn't for that muff snap in the red zone by their offense. Their defense can really present challenges for any offense they're going against, and I do believe they will do so. When you look at this total, is at 51.5 right now. I think that is screaming under, and I'm going to take the under.
All right, NC State and Wake Forest, the only 2 unbeaten teams in that division in the ACC. They'll face off a little bit later in the season. NC State trying to stay perfect with Wake off. Let's recap the picks in the ACC and the Big Ten, the ranked games from Brady and Bryant. They agree on the under in the Purdue-Iowa game, under 44 in that one. They do not agree on the others. Brady going with Indiana, plus 4.5 against Michigan State. BMAC on Michigan State. And you just heard their picks on the NC State-Boston College game. When we come back, we transition to the Pac-12. Oregon had a week off after losing to Stanford. Do they get back on track? And is there another team that's starting to roll out west? Picking every ranked game in college football, we now move to the Pac-12. Oregon, after a week off, gets a short week this week. Friday, 10:30 Eastern time at home, 13.5-point favorites against 1-4 Cal. And look out for Arizona State playing great football right now. Saturday night, 10 Eastern, virtual pick'em there at Utah. Another team playing better football right now than at the start of the season. Let's pick them against the spread with Brady Quinn and Bryant McFadden. And let's start with that Friday game. Oregon, man, you lose that heartbreaker to Stanford, and then you just have to sit on it and let it chew at you for the next week.
The good thing is you're going to have your play caller back in Joe Moorhead. He's one of the better in college football. Missed that time due to a surgery, non-COVID related, but still getting him back is going to be a huge feather in the cap. The problem is you're going to be without C.J. Verdell, really their bell cow back. Now, Travis Dye will take over a lot of those responsibilities, but it's really going to come down to Seven McGee and Byron Cardwell, who are going to be a part of that rushing attack, along with their quarterback, Anthony Brown. So, look, at this point, Justin Wilcox's Cal defense is not going to be up for the challenge against the rushing attack, and really big playability off of that in the passing game for Oregon. That defense is feisty too. So I'm on the side of Oregon here. I do think the under is the play to me, at least in the over-under, only because I don't think Cal's going to score many points. I think Oregon will put up their fair amount, BMAC.
Yeah, I'm right there with you with the Ducks laying 13.5. Remember, a year ago, the Golden Bears stunned Oregon in that unexpected win, surprising win. They remember that, not to mention seeing the last time they were on the football field, what happened, an unexpected loss to Stanford. You talked about some of the guys they potentially will get back. Don't forget about Kayvon Thibodeau as well. Remember, he got ejected out of that ball game against Stanford. He will be back for them at some point in time in this matchup. One thing I can say about Cal, they've been bad. You know, that has been the one consistent trend with their team. Unfortunately, they've been a bad team, especially defensively. Their pass defense has been horrible. Anthony Brown will be able to make some plays happen against their secondary, and I do believe he will do so, especially when you look at Verdell not being in the lineup. And then, historically speaking, when you talk about the betting trend, one thing I can say about Cal, the one consistent element they have provided when it comes to gambling has been not covering their spread. The last 6 matchups, they're 1-5 ATS playing in Oregon. That's a hot trend that I'm going to follow along with some of the other key components that we all mentioned. Give me the Ducks laying 13.5.
Both like the Ducks minus 13.5. Again, that's a Friday night game. Question in the Pac-12 now is, 1, they get the playoff team, but 2, who's the best team now? Because it was Oregon, they've got the best win. Arizona State's playing some really good football. They go to Utah in a virtual toss-up here.
Yeah, they're playing really good football, but I think coming into the season, we thought the Pac-12 South was going to be the better between the two, and now I think we're questioning how good the Pac-12 South really is at this point. Arizona State does look to be the best team. Really, that rushing attack is what's carrying them so far. Jaden Daniels, their quarterback, being a part of that. He's going to be tested, though, to see what he can do in the passing game. Look, Kyle Whittingham, Morgan Scalley, defensive coordinator at Utah, they play a lot of post-high safety defense. Bryant McFadden knows this. They're going to load up the box and try to stop the run and force Jaden Daniels to utilize one-on-one matchups on the outside. That's how they're going to play this thing. And Cam Rising on the other side of the field, too, a quarterback for Utah, had maybe his breakout game as the Utes quarterback. So, look, I'm going to lay the point here. It's basically a pick, and you might as well play the money line with Arizona State if you feel confident in that. But that's the best play. I do think that it will be a low-scoring game, in my opinion. But bottom line is I'm betting on this Arizona State talent, speed, ability, especially out in the perimeter, winning out when it's all said and done, B-Mac.
Yeah, this line is a bit strange, to say the least. Like you said, Brady's basically a pick 'em, but why is that? I mean, Arizona State 5-1, we're not getting the play that we thought we would get from Jaden Daniels, but they're winning ball games and running the football well. And defensively, I mean, the last 3 matchups, they're only allowing around 15 points per ball game. So because of this line seeming to be a bit strange, I'm taking the under. Defensively, Arizona State defense, they have been a nightmare for opposing quarterbacks and opposing offenses they face. I love Rising from Utah. Like you said, he's been playing pretty good football, yet to throw an interception. But I don't think we're going to see an explosion of points coming from either offense, especially with this line basically being a pick 'em. So the way I'm going is attacking the total, and I'm taking the under.
All right, only loss for Arizona State so far this season was a game at BYU, a game Arizona State fans will tell you they should have won.
Yep.
Recapping the Pac-12 picks, and there's only a couple of ranked games in the Pac-12. Oregon is the pick for both Brady and Bryant, minus 13.5. Again, that's a Friday game. And the under is the consensus in the Arizona State-Utah game, under 51, though Brady does like the Sun Devils to win that game and cover. Up next, we go to the group of 5, and Cincinnati in the spotlight once again. They're up to number 3 in the land, and they've got UCF coming to town. Here are your group of 5 ranked games, beginning on Friday with San Diego State at San Jose State in the Mountain West, a game on CBS Sports Network. UCF is at number 3 Cincinnati. The Bearcats favored by 3 touchdowns. And BYU, coming off its first loss of the season, is at Baylor in a future Big 12 matchup. Brady, Quinn, and Bryant McFadden picking every ranked college game against the spread. Let's start with that Cincinnati game. I think the Bearcats were hoping this would be one of those really marquee games. UCF has already lost a couple games, but at this point, does Cincinnati need to worry about that because they've already passed all their tests?
They have to control what they can control at this point in time. That's continuing to be the very well-rounded team and blowing out your opponents. And obviously this line sitting at 21 points right now, to me, is one that I think Cincinnati will not only have no trouble whatsoever playing at home covering, but I think they're going to try to make a statement as they move forward through the rest of their schedule. So look for Desmond Ridder to continue to keep putting on Heisman performances, that defense to be as airtight as we've seen. And I'm going to take the over just because, again, I don't think Cincinnati can afford to take their foot off the gas right now. They may sit in the top 4 as we currently speak, but because of what you had talked about, Chris, the lack of schedule and all the playing that's going to be happening within the Big Ten East that we still have in front of us, Oklahoma as well, moving through the rest of their schedule, still undefeated. Unfortunately, they might get leapfrogged and it might be completely out of their control. So control what you can control and put up some impressive performances. That's what I'm expecting from Cincinnati, B-Mac.
Yeah, no question. For me, style points is needed for Cincinnati because of their affiliation with a Group of 5 conference. So they have to go out and win, but they got to add some style and pizzazz to it, a little razzle-dazzle. And understanding and seeing how focused and talented this team is, I take Cincinnati laying 21 points. Desmond Ridder has been unbelievable. You better believe he needs more numbers to be able to get an invite to the Heisman, which would be wonderful for their university. Not to mention defensively, I'll count at least 5 or 6 pros on their defense right now. And 2 guys will probably be top 3 round selected players when that time comes. So when you factor in all the talent, when you factor in the focus, when you factor in how important every ball game will be for Cincinnati, give me Cincinnati laying the 21 points against the Knights.
Style, pizzazz, razzle, and dazzle. That's what BMAC wants to see from the Cincinnati Bearcats from here on out. Both like the Bearcats to cover that 21. Moving to BYU, coming off its first loss of the season, out of conference for now at Baylor, a future Big 12 matchup.
Yeah, 2 good football teams. I don't really know how much separates them. I mean, I think when you look at the spread at 6 points, I lean towards BYU in this case, only because I think both teams can run the football effectively. Jerry Bohannon's demonstrated that for Baylor, particularly at the quarterback position. And looking at the backfield and really whichever quarterback hall in particular when he's had his opportunities, though, for BYU, they've been effective. And the downfield passing game has had its moments. So I love BYU taking the 6 points here. I think they'll be able to keep this thing within the number. But I think the over 2 is another interesting play. Both these teams should be able to score some points in this one, BMAC.
Yeah, this is going to be an entertaining ball game, but I think the atmosphere with Baylor playing at home definitely provides 2 points to this line. So I'm taking the Baylor Bears, giving 6 points, going against BYU. I love Bohannon. I mean, he's been really smart with the football, yet to throw an interception, 11 touchdowns, completing 66% of his passes. When you factor in the ground and pound attack, Abram Smith, he's averaging over 7 yards per carry, around 7 touchdowns. But the main reason why I'm taking Baylor outside of them playing at home is their defense. Their defense has been very, very consistent, only allowing 17 points when you factor in how well they've been balanced on offense, not to mention playing at home. One thing I know about Baylor, when they play at home, they get the fans behind them, and that's instant momentum in their favor. So BYU is a talented team, a competitive team. I really enjoy watching them so far this season, but I think this will be a tall, tall task for them going to Baylor and trying to cover this spread. So give me Baylor laying the points. That's
a 3:30 Eastern time game on Saturday. One more Group of 5 ranked game, and it's San Diego State at San Jose State. This is a Friday game. San Jose State, the defending Mountain West champs, but this is a different team than we saw last year.
Yeah, they haven't got off to the same start, or at least, as far as what this team looks like this year. Hasn't been quite the same. San Diego State loves to run the football. They're one of the best in the country. Greg Bell really leads them out of the backfield. So the play I like in this one is the fact, combined with the San Diego State defense, really going up against San Jose State. I love the under. I just think the way they play, they shorten the game, they run at will. So I'll go ahead and lay the 8 points, but I feel much better about the under at 41.5 being the total here.
Yo, Brady, I feel the same way. I'm laying the 8 points, but I really love the under as well. So if you want to double dip, you can take the points, give the points, and lay the under as well and double dip. San Diego State, they're first in the Mountain West. Yes, they've been running the football really, really well. Over 240 yards on the ground, they've been averaging. Not to mention, when you look at San Jose, defensively, they're allowing over 140 yards on the ground consistently. So that's not the issue you would like to have on your defense when you're playing against the Aztecs. So I believe they're going to run the football. Not to mention San Diego State's defense, they've been biting. They've been biting, especially in the red zone area. I mean, they play some of their best football in the red area, only allowing around 16 points per ball game. So when you factor all of that into the equation and understanding for San Diego State, they can't have any blemish. They're number 1 in their conference. They would like to stay there. This is a very, very important game. So give me the Aztecs laying the points.
That is one of the late ones, and it's on CBS Sports Network. Our Amanda Guerra going to be working sideline on that one as well. Let's recap the picks from the Group of 5 ranked teams. BMAC and Brady agreeing on Cincy and agreeing on San Diego State, minus the 8 at San Jose State. They disagree on BYU and Baylor. The Bears giving 6 at home. All right, just about done here with Brady Quinn and Bryant McFadden. Boy, what a week it was last week, Brady.
Unbelievable.
How can we – you can't top it. We're not going to be able to even equal that.
Maybe if Kentucky pulls off – look, they've already beat Florida. They've already beat LSU. Georgia, which they beat in 1977, that would kind of follow that same trend we've seen. So maybe they can pull off the upset.
BMAC, you buying that? Kentucky have a shot?
They don't have a shot, but they have a shot. but they don't have a shot.
Yeah,
It's not a good one.
3 touchdown spread.
It's not a
but
good one.
you play the games, right? Brady Quinn,
Take the under. Take the under.
Brian McFadden, Amanda Guerra. I'm Chris Hassel. BMAC says under in that Kentucky game. Thanks, guys.